This podcast is produced by the Harwood Productions Podcast Network. To learn more about the network and to find more of our shows, visit us online at www.harwoodpodcast.com.
Hi, I'm Helene Woods, and this is Let's Quilt, episode number 20. In this episode, I'm going to share with you some of the quilts that I have made through the years, and at the close of the show, we're going to have a friend of mine who has designed and made her own quilt, which is really quite lovely. Let's start here with this wall hanging that I made. Now, this is an Eleanor Burns design, and it's called Lodgepole Pine. That's the trees are the lodgepole pines. Now, what's different about this quilt is most quilts, as you know, are all made from blocks. In this one, it's a little bit different. The blocks are called on point. So in other words, they're not sitting here this way. We turned it a little bit, and that's the way we did it. And it's interesting. You can take some yarn and embroidery on your quilts as you go along. The trees themselves are done in Stitch in the Ditch. The background is all stippling, and that is all done freehand, and it makes a very interesting background, I think, for any quilt or wall hanging. Here's another wall hanging that I did, and this is by Dottie Kruger. She was a designer of it. And what I like to show you with this is how you can buy fabrics that you can incorporate into your wall hanging that make it really interesting. Like in this is a rock fabric. The house is the bricks. The roof can look like a tile. And then in your trees, if you get a mottled colored tree, then it doesn't look like it's just a green tree. And then you can go ahead and put all your snow in. And down here at the bottom, I've got Christmas packages in the canoe. So you can see where the Christmas light, the title of it, comes in really well. I've gone ahead and done a lot of stippling on this quilt also. And this is all appliqued on. So all the pieces have been cut out and stitched on. Now here's a little project that's kind of fun to do. And my daughter and I, this was a joint project. And you can start out by doing your quilting. You have your patchwork here. Then we've got a little bit of applique with embroidery work. As I keep turning it, now this is a little different. This is called paper piecing, and you take paper to make your patches, and then we embroidered on top of it also. Here's its title, It's Autumn. And as I go around, you can see all the different things that you can do, and I think these flowers here are quite lovely. So this is another way you can use your quilting experience and put it into another media. These are two quilts that I have made for my son's family and my daughter's family, and these were designed by Linda Quigley. This is called a Simple Country Sampler, and there again with the samplers we have all different kinds of blocks, birds and trees and stars and houses, and we have up in the corner a big basket of flowers up there, a typical sampler quilt. And here's another little quilt, and this is called Summer Day Sampler. And we have the sun coming up, we have flowers, we have birds, we have trees, we have bunnies, all kinds of fruit down here, more bees, beehives and things, and this would be relating to a typical summer day. Now on this quilt, every one of these is a block in one size or another. And then I'm going to show you over here These are also blocks, but they're much smaller and they're narrower and they're running across, as you can see. Now here are two quilts that I made with my grandson when he was a little guy. And the first one here is called Cat and the Mouse. And it was a fun quilt to make, and I wanted to show you that when I was setting up the maze, I got different kinds of material. Like these are little penguins, and these are M&Ms. These are moons and planets and things like that. Over here we have some ladybugs on down. And when you plan a quilt for a child, you get kind of fun fabrics that you know that they will take time and look at while they're playing with it. And we have our cat up here, and he's peering through the hole in the floor, and he's coming on down, and he's going to come through the maze to the mouse and his cheese. Now this is another nice quilt that is great for the winter time. I made it with flannel, and it's called a scrappy flannel log cabin. The log cabin is relating to the stripes here, just like a log cabin would be made. Now with this I chose the fabric are little bears and wagons and things that, again, that children would like to play with and enjoy having on top of them when they're trying to get warm. When I made these quilts for my grandson, I decided to make some pillows to go along with it. And as you can see, you can just make a big block using some of the fabric that you already have and make a pillow to go along with the quilt. And in the log cabin, I did the same. And this is actually one single block that I incorporated and put it right on the backing and then made a pillow out of it also. This quilt is called Love Letters. And what makes it so unique in its design is you take this square and you start sewing on your hearts. But if you look very closely, you will see these hearts are not finished on the edges. So you start out and you're making your large heart first. Then you cut that out on the back. Then you place your next heart on top of that. You cut it out. So you get all done. You've got a nice shaped heart. Then you have all the backs of these hearts. And that's what you use in your borders, that you're going all the way around. It turns out to be a beautiful little quilt. Now, it is supposed to be washed, but I haven't washed it yet. But when you do, then all of these edges get all nice and fuzzy. I think it turned out really well. This is the first quilt that I ever made, and I highly suggest it for people who are just beginning to quilt and want to learn to make all different kinds of blocks. As you look around, you can see each one is a different block, style, and color, and this is a true sampler of what you can make. In the center here, this is called paper piecing, and being able to get this cabin on this piece of fabric, and as you see, this is all one block. Though it's appliqued, it was really fun to make. And as you go down, you can see the different borders that you can make. And this is from a company in, it's called Yorktown Fabrics. And I'll have those up on my website so you can see, and you might be interested in purchasing this. This is a block of the month, which is another way how to learn how to quilt. They will send you the fabric and you sew it up. One thing I'd like to talk to you about is as you quilt along and through the years, I think you should have a record of all of your quilts, just so it can be passed down through your family. Now this is a book and it's called Quilts Legacy, and I have filled it out with all the pictures of my quilts. Now I have here with the little cat that I showed you earlier, I named it Cam's Cat. And I made this to go on his loft bed. This was made in September 1999. So as you see, and it's something you can have forever, a record of what you have accomplished. Here's a jacket that I made several years ago, and it's called Cottage Garden. And it was very fun to make. You actually make the fabric, and then you have to cut it out and sew it. This block is, well, you can hardly see that it is a block, but what you do is you start out with 3 little squares, and then you go out and you bind that on either side. Now you start out with your lighter colors, and then your medium colors, and then you get the darker. So as it ends up, I'm going to show you with my finger, this is the block itself. Then you sew those all together. And this is another sample of sewing on the point. They're all going up. It has the mandarin collar, which is very flattering. These are porcelain buttons that have flowers on them. It is completely lined, and as you can see, and then I put my initials on the inside of it. I'd like to show the back to you also. It was a nice project to make, and you can spend many winter hours sewing away.
Grandma made ends meet with a needle and a thread. I swear there wasn't anything she couldn't stitch and mend. She left us with a love and legacy, homespun masterpieces on a treadle machine. Grand prize winners, best of show, she swept the county fairs. Ordinary scraps became designs beyond compare. Her quilts could bring a tear to every eye, especially that treasure I remember her by. A blaze of patchwork stars across a field of blue. I marveled how she stayed the course to see each one through. She said, I can't afford to let things fall apart, so I do the best with what I have and find a place to start. And the pieces came together on Grandma's patchwork star. Gift by any measure, the one I'll hold forever. Yeah, the pieces come together on Grandma's patchwork